This is Avirodh Sharma and students of the East Indian Music Academy located in South Ozone Park, Queens, New York. It's been a whirlwind love affair with the Tabla and Authentic Hindustani music, from Guyana to Trinidad to India, then back to Trinidad before formally establishing in New York City. The East Indian Music Academy was built on a blank canvas in the early 90s when New York City was New York City, which meant that to build something great, you definitely had to be amazing. And amazing they were. It was a time when everything seemed possible, when New York was yours to behold, bringing talent, art, expressing cultural statements through music, and becoming legends in their own right. The Ramsamooch family has definitely made their mark in the West Indian community and has touched thousands of lives, literally thousands, since its establishment in 1990.
When I came to this country, I came with $200. When my wife came, she came with a plane ticket without a dog. That's how we came to this country. We started music in a basement. But my dream is actually right on Liberty Avenue, there was a little store on the side, so it had a music school, a little teaching guitar. And every time I passed there, I said, you know what? I wonder when this day will come, I can have a small little shop like this or a small little store like this, saying a music school.
It wasn't easy for the Ramsamooch family, who formally incorporated the school in 1998. But the journey began in the late 70s when now Dr. Ravi Dean attended an Aryaveda youth camp on the Essequibo coast. His now wife, Pandita Bharati, was born in Windsor Forest on the west coast of Demerara and was a staunch devotee of the Bhagavad Gita, so much so that she completed 18 chapters of the religious teachings by age 10. She would go on to memorize all 700 slokas or verses and began singing bhajans and chanting mantras. She immediately became known as the Nightingale of Demerara. So when she met her husband, who was also a composer and singer from Trinidad, it was a natural coming together of two very talented people of the arts.
I've started looking at life from a very universal perspective, even before I got married to Raviji. So when I got married to him in 1981, I knew I was going to a different country. But I embraced it because I knew that I made a choice to marry to a Trinidadian. And I felt going to India with my area of studies in Hindi and Sanskrit and with my involvement in the culture from Guyana, coupled with his exposure in the music that he studied, we both together will be able to make an excellent blend when we go to India, and we'll take it from there.
Avirodh Sharma was born in Trinidad and Tobago and has been on this journey equally as has his parents, who started the school from humble beginnings with just 15 students.
I mean, yes, I'm officially from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm making it known. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm from Cuba, but I am not biased in any way. You know, I have Guyanese family, I have Trinidadian family, and I love them. You know, so. Okay, so the reason why I got emotional is, you know, our family struggled a lot, generationally as well. So what you're seeing here is a product of generations of hard work. And here in New York City, we just want to continue that.
In 1984, when Avirodh was 2.5 years old, the family would spend 5 years in India between Delhi and Agra, with his father getting a degree in Hindustani music from Delhi University and his mother acquiring a degree in Hindustani philosophy and Sanskrit from Agra and Delhi University in succession. His father would later return to India to get his PhD.
Because she was, you know, staying in Agra, and she used to come home during the weekends, and I used to wonder, who is this lady coming home every weekend? You know, as a 3-year-old, you know. But I have some wonderful memories growing up in India because my dad, I would hear him practicing and singing very early in the morning, and so those impressions lasted with me as a kid growing up.
It was a Renaissance period in New York City with the arrival of immigrants and an infusion of cultures. Mandirs were popping up everywhere. So naturally, when his parents decided to teach music, Avirodh began from an early age to learn tabla and thereafter becoming a teacher of the art form himself.
I mean, I was 13, 14 when I was learning tabla with my dad, And then by 17, I was taking on full classes to teach because the demand was so high. So at 17, 18, I was managing 150 students by myself. I mean, that's not a piece of cake for any 17-year-old. You know, to be able to track their progress, to make sure that they're motivated, making sure that they're inspired. So I learned a lot of skills from teaching from a very early age, which definitely helped me today as a professional artist.
With strong dedication and commitment, Avirodh perfected his art and is now a highly accomplished artist, composer, and producer, and has teamed up with Irish musicians such as Riverdance, collaborated with various artists such as Karsh Kale and David Parsons. In 2015, Avirodh was nominated for the Independent Music Awards for Best World Beat Album, Melodic Intersect, and had a follow-up in 2017, Melodic Intersect Looking Forward, which charted 8 weeks at #1 on the world music charts.
Playing the tabla at a level where people in the audience were telling me, you know, you're Indian at heart, but you're global in spirit. And that was one of the greatest compliments I ever got, because imagine I'm playing something that I learned out here, and to be able to represent it back in India, people were shocked. You know, they were amazed to know that the Indian culture is still rich and alive outside of India. You know, the 90s were the most impressionable time period for me, because as a teenager, there's a lot going on. I was a big fan of basketball, so I'd be looking at Michael Jordan growing up. And then in tabla, the equivalent of Michael Jordan would be Zakir Hussain, who was from India. And so I grew up watching these great icons. And I always imagined that one day, you know, I'll be able to work with caliber of artists like this. And fast forward, you know, the last 4 or 5 years, I've been blessed to work with artists like that. You have to spend many years dedicated to an instrument. And what happens when you put in those years of practice, the instrument now gives back to you. And what I mean by that is all those years of hard work, you were able to communicate feelings. You can communicate stories through the rhythm. That's only if you have control of the art form. So sometimes I'm playing in a show, in a concert, people feel things differently. Even though I'm playing a rhythm and a beat, sometimes there are words that cannot express the feelings, but the rhythm can translate it for you instead.
Indian music is undeniably one of the most ancient, complex, and versatile. One of the most popular drums is the tabla. So how did the tabla originated?
There's an inventor, his name is Amir Khusro, back in the 13th century. And he was given credit for inventing tabla. And basically the story goes, there's a predecessor, there's another drum called pakawach. Bakars looks like a dholak, but in a tabla form. The straps, the type of skin, everything looks very similar. That drum has been around for at least 2,000 plus years, being used in temples in India. So what he did was he cut this drum in half, and supposedly that's how the first tablas were created.
So when our ancestors left India, they brought their culture with them.
Like in Bihar, they sing a lot of what we call in Trinidad and Guyana, tan singing or local classical singing music. So in those regions, they had dholak there, they had tabla. So whoever came, the families that came, they brought their religious books with them. They brought their instruments also with them.
But a variety of tabla playing variations were brought to the West Indies.
There are fundamental similarities, but regionally, in terms of the theory and the evolution of I would say composition, it varies from region to region. So for example, the Calcutta way of tabla playing is different from those who are from Punjab. And we have many ancestors that came from Punjab. Their hand of playing tabla is different versus from those from Delhi. Delhi is where tabla originated in terms of the style of tabla playing, started in Delhi. So in a nutshell, there's 5 major tabla styles of playing, and each one has its own unique embellishments.
So which variation does the school teach?
I originally learned, my dad, he learned Benares style of tabla playing a little bit, and when he was learning in India, in Delhi, he was studying the Delhi style a little bit. And so, so I was learning a little bit of the Delhi and the Benares as a teenager growing up. And then, like I said earlier about Zakir Hussain, the great tabla maestro, when I first started listening, I'm like, what is this? This is really different from everyone else. And what made him a genius was he was able to incorporate the best of everything. I have tried to incorporate all of those things. I make sure the students here receive an all-rounded education in tabla. I feel that, if I have that knowledge, why not share it?
The rhythm of the tabla is known as tal in Hindi. There are many different tals with hundreds of variations and cycles. One of the most popular is the Kaherwa tal, performed on the floor in a cross-legged position.
So Kaherwa tal is a cycle of 8 beats. The primary notes are da, ge, na, ti, na, ka, ni, na. And I'll be playing variations of this tal.
From this, once you understand these 8 beats, there are many more other beats that derive from that. So there are hundreds and hundreds of variations that tabla players can use once they understand that basic version of it. But it is used from Bollywood music to folk music in India, even in the Caribbean. You hear that rhythm at least 80-90% of the time. When even in manders, it's a very grounded tal that people resonate with, even if they don't know music. When you hear that rhythm, it's like, yeah, it gives you that punch, that excitement.
The composition of Indian classical music combines the rhythm, which is the tal, to fixed notes, which are known as raga compositions. Raga is a traditional pattern of notes in Indian classical music.
A raga has certain components. A raga is based on the musical notes, up and down of the scale. How many notes are you going to select? For example, Rag Bhupali. Sa re ga pa da sa, sa re ga pa da. These are the only notes you can use going upwards. Sa da pa ga re sa, and these are notes you can use coming backwards. This raga is more on the lower side, not on the high octave. It's more on the lower. Da sa re ga re pa ga da pa ga re sa, jayati jay ma sharde. Every rag has a set of notes to play with. A rag has the timing of, so when that does this rag is more effective, has a time of singing. And this time of singing is based on the most important note of the rag. There are two notes that you'll find coming very regular. One is the Vadi Swar, which is very dominant, and the second is Samvadi Swar, which is second dominant note. So these are the components that each raga has.
When the raga compositions are fixed to a specific tal, they fit nicely into the groove of the chosen tal, making classical music. Combining vocals on basically any instrument from the tabla to the harmonium, the sitar, and many others are taught at the music school. The music school has its own books which are written by Dr. Ravideen himself.
So for us to keep these old traditional bhajans, the purity of it, this is why I decided to put them, write it down, so that even when I am not around anymore again, anyone can go back to these books and to read it and to translate and to play back the music in its original form. This type of music, that the books that we have prepared, is not available in the market. Why? Because generally people in Indian music, they teach by hearing. You listen and you play harmony by listening. They never teach by notation. So this way because I learned Western music notation system, and because you learn from notation system, you're able, those who know the notation system will be able to replay that same music exactly as was taught in those days. So the whole idea of putting these books at different levels. Right now I'm working on the fourth level. I already selected the songs, almost write all the notation. Now I'm typesetting. All these books, I actually write them myself, typeset it myself.
Students that pass through the school are guaranteed to not just learn music, but also gain valuable knowledge on how to become an overall well-rounded individual.
What we have done on my journey in this academy, we made our students into teachers themselves. All across the globe, all across the US, all across New York City, the students, we started from very small, teaching them from Saregamapa, started them off from there to where they have arrived at the advanced level music. And of course, with their Hindi and moral education, they are able to teach wherever they are. Because not only the authentic music that Raviji has taught, but he has actually taught how to become a better person. And together with my area of moral and ethical education, I feel really good to know and to let you know that our culture will not die, because we have touched thousands of souls with this authentic music and with our moral and ethical education. And everywhere in New York City, if you go, you will find in almost every Monday, you will find students of the East Indian Music Academy.
While Pandita Bharti is a legend in her own right, she was also lucky enough to have a daughter-in-law who also came from a musical background, originally from Corriverton, Berbice, Guyana.
Our relationship is one that we both are, so we independently work together. I was a program director for an after-school program for about 15 years. So transitioning into, and I have my master's in education, and I come from a musical background too. My father's a singer and a writer and a producer. And so naturally coming into a family that does education, whereas my parents are educators, and marrying into a family of educators, it was just a natural flow. And being married to a rock star, it's not bad. It has its perks.
At any one time, the school has about 150 students actively enrolled and has so far trained over 20,000 students. Much of the classes are being conducted at present via Skype. However, the school officially reopens its doors for classes on September 8th. Students of the music school all have their own story, many of whom started out playing instruments as early as 4 years old.
Well, I play the percussion drum called tabla, and I also play harmonium. I don't like one more than each other. I like them both equally. Both of them, you have to give the same amount of effort.
I like that I can create my own beats, whereas other instruments, there are other instruments where you can like make your own sounds. Like I can like put more pressure in like this side of the bass, and it would give me a certain sound, whereas like a piano, when you would just like press on it, it would only give you one sound that you want. But like you can like make your own sounds with this tabla.
I feel like, you know, when you're playing sitar, it's definitely a lot like singing, you know, when you pull, like, it's not just like sa re ga ma ba, you can go sa re ga ma. So you can actually like pull the notes on the sitar and almost like make the sitar itself sing. Like with timing and things like that, it kind of puts something in your brain that's like, you know, you should always be on time, you should always have discipline when you're playing notes to hit the right note, or, you know, and, you know, just do everything to the best that you can. And that really carries through, I think, for life. You know, I carry it to school, I carry it to my job now.
Well, the story starts before I was even born, really. So I have an older brother who used to learn harmonium and tabla here. My mom would bring him while she was pregnant with me. Eventually, I was born, and at the age of 4.5, I enrolled in classes.
When I was really small, my dad used to like practice the tabla, and he used to put me on his lap and let me play. And one of my first lessons was from him, and you know, I just developed a love for tabla. I thought it was so hard, but over the years, I developed a love and attachment for the tabla.
So naturally, hoping to become a student one day, I had to give the tabla a try.
This is the bass drum, and this is the treble drum. So like all the fine tones that you hear, the little that kind of sounds come from this, and sounds from all that nice bass is coming from this drum. So what you do is your left hand, you're going to set it like a cobra. You know, have you seen a cobra? Right? So one of the notes in tabla is called ka. So you just hit down flat, right, like that. So tabla, every note you play, it's supposed to sound like that. There's a vocabulary, there's a vocalization. So ka, up, flat, hit it flat, don't lift it up, right? So again, ka, a little harder, right? See, ka, it's supposed to sound like that. Good. So that's one note on tabla. And then on the right hand drum, so imagine like an airplane. You have the wing, the right wing here in the middle, nose of the plane is here. And this here is what you're going to hit with, right? So if this crashes, then everything falls apart. The nose can't dive down, right? So the pinky is here, okay? So what are you doing? It's like this. You have wrist movement here. So you can actually go like this, right? You feel it, relax your wrist muscles, right? And you're basically striking with this finger out here. Right? So you have to play with your wrist muscles. Right, so all your power is coming from here. Right. Looks easy, right? No, it's not easy. This is where to practice. To get that basic sound, it requires a little practice. So even hit it on the outside, maybe it'll sound better if you hear it. Oh, there you go. So that's a note also. That's called na. So when you play na, with practice, this is the way it's going to sound. You hear the difference in this? Oh, that's pretty cool. Hey, not bad for the first lesson.
Tabla playing is truly a labor of love that requires many years of dedication, focus, and practice for even the basic of sounds. The degree of clarity and fullness that permeates from the sound is vast and ultimately defines a player's voice. I am Jennifer Jabbar, leaving you now with a folk song from Mystic Missouri.
Lovely.
Yep. Okay, we're good for tabla?